Revealed. My financial advisor's shocking advice at midnight changed everything for my family. Each tick of the clock echoed in the silence of Sarah Johnson's kitchen, amplifying the weight of her suffocating thoughts. At 34, she'd once envisioned a stable life, complete with career satisfaction and a gentle peace in her quiet Ohio suburb. But the reality was a tangled mess of overdue bills and stale dreams, with the recent loss of her job at the local medical office, leaving her floundering amidst an ocean of uncertainty. The warmth of her children's gentle snores danced in stark contrast to the chilling draft of anxiety creeping into her bones. Then her phone buzzed, slicing through the hushed despair. The screen lit up with a message from Mr. Thompson, her financial advisor, and she felt a jolt of electricity mixed with dread. It was nearly 10, and here he was, reaching out for a late-night video call. Curiosity wrestled with weariness, and despite herself, a flicker of hope ignited within her. Could this be the lifeline she desperately needed? But was it worth risking the last of her dwindling savings on yet another unknown investment opportunity? The monstrous weight of her responsibilities pressed heavily on her shoulders. The world's expectations scraped against her aspirations. She longed for stability while fearing another letdown. Her stomach twisted at the thought. What if this was just another false promise? As the video call started, Mr. Thompson's confident smile immediately felt both reassuring and unsettling. He spoke fluidly about potential investments that could turn her fortunes around, but as he unveiled each enticing prospect, a knot tightened in her gut. What did it mean to gamble with her last lifeboat? The very foundation of her family, her children's well-being, felt dangerously at stake in his hands. Before she could formulate her skepticism, he shared his own struggles from years past, revealing layers of himself that blurred the lines between trusted advisor and a man lost in his ambition. The stories flowed like shadows in the dark, tales of fortunes won and lost, each one amplifying her unease. Here she was, contemplating a leap into the abyss, enticed by the mere hint of a financial future. Was she, too, falling prey to the same reckless dreams that had consumed him? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Her heart raced as he outlined strategies that danced tantalizingly close to her dreams. She longed for liberation but feared the risk of losing everything she cherished. Her secure home, her children's trust. The emotional tumult surged beneath her calm exterior, leaving her paralyzed between ambition and the nagging voice of caution. Just as the grip of despair tightened, she caught a glimpse of a future where her children thrived, their laughter echoing against the walls of prosperity. As the conversation wound down, unease seeped into her very core. The stakes were more than just money. It felt like navigating a maze of morality, teetering between her duty as a mother and the tantalizing prospect of breaking free from the shackles of her current existence. Just then, her phone buzzed again. A message from her younger brother, a plea for help amidst his own struggles. How could she hold on to her family while grappling with her own overwhelming burden? Sarah was now ensnared by a choice laden with consequences. As the clock struck midnight, the chasm of uncertainty yawned wide before her, presenting a moment that would shape the future of her family. In the heart of darkness, how would she find her way? The following morning, Sarah awoke with the sun's tentative rays slipping through the kitchen curtains, illuminating the chaos that had settled both inside her mind and around the home. The urgency of the night's revelations echoed in her thoughts as she brewed a pot of coffee, the familiar ritual providing a momentary reprieve from the unease that lurked beneath the surface. Sitting at the table, she stared vacantly at the bills piled before her like a tide, threatening to drown her. Thrumming anxiety surged through her veins, juxtaposed with the fiery determination that had been ignited in the wee hours when Mr. Thompson laid out his ambitious plans. She couldn't ignore both. Each was a part of the tumultuous world she had to navigate from now on. Her gaze shifted to the framed family photo propped on the wall. Her grinning children, their faces alight with innocence and possibility. For them, she needed a plan that resonated deeper than mere survival. She needed to create a thriving future. But how could she gamble on the unknown, especially when they were so vulnerable? The reflection tugged at her, and she found herself running through the options he had presented. High-risk investments in burgeoning industries had the potential for high rewards, but there was a lurking shadow of failure she couldn't shake. Each scenario spiraled into a cascade of what-ifs, threatening to engulf her reason. Instead of wallowing, Sarah decided to take her first steps towards empowerment. She rummaged through her emails and found a link Mr. Thompson had sent, a webinar detailing the intricacies of investing. Knowledge was power, she reminded herself, and if she could equip herself with the tools necessary to navigate this uncertain terrain, perhaps she could still exercise control over her family's fate. Firing up her laptop, she settled in for what would turn out to be an illuminating session. The instructor spoke passionately about market trends and strategies that could lead to financial independence. With each passing minute, Sarah felt the fog of confusion lifting, replaced by clarity and purpose. A latent sense of competence began to unfurl within her, a potential she had momentarily doubted. That spark ignited a fierce resolve. She was not merely an ordinary woman caught amidst overwhelming demands. She could evolve. As the session wrapped up, she took notes feverishly, determined to leverage what she'd learned into actionable insights. This was the moment she would transform herself, from a passive recipient of circumstances to an active architect of her own destiny. Reinvigorated, she set out to outline a plan of her own, one that melded cautious optimism with her newfound knowledge. She would begin small, a low-risk investment option that could slowly build her confidence without straining her already unstable resources. Yet, as this ember of self-belief grew, another reality clawed at her. Her brother's message lingered in her mind like a specter. It was a call for help, a demand for her support in his own turmoil. The looming question remained. Could she afford to extend herself beyond her capabilities? Or would that put her own fragile footing at risk? The clock ticked on the wall, reminding her of time's relentless passage. Decisions lay thick in the air, ripe with possibility, yet laden with consequence. Just as she felt the momentum building within her, an unsettling thought gripped her. What if self-sufficiency came at a price she couldn't or shouldn't pay? The moment had come to confront her internal conflict head-on. She took a deep breath and reached for her phone, ready to respond to her brother. But as she pressed the screen, a rush of doubt fluttered in her stomach. Was she ready to push forward, or would helping him mean sacrificing her own nascent plans? With the uncertain silence enveloping her like a shroud, she realized the pivotal crossroads lay ahead. The ultimate test of her newfound ambition and motherly duty was about to unfold. What choice would she make, and would it catapult her into a new self, or simply drag her back into the depths of chaos? Sarah's heart raced as she hovered over the phone, an invisible weight pressing down on her shoulders. The thought of reaching out to her brother evoked a flurry of emotions. Resentment for the unyielding demands he placed on her, guilt for even contemplating ignoring his plea, and an alarming pang of maternal instinct. She had fought so hard to carve her own path. Would turning her back on him mean losing herself once again? Taking a deep breath, she steadied her trembling fingers and chose to text him back. "I'll help you. Let's talk later." The message felt both liberating and suffocating. A commitment to be the sister he needed, yet still a personal inflection point demanding clarity on her priorities. For that fleeting moment, her resolve wavered. But she knew she couldn't retract her words. With her brother's problem now hanging in the air, Sarah shifted her focus back to her own aspirations. As the sun reached its zenith, pooling warmth on her skin, she felt a surge of energy coursing through her. Perhaps each commitment could coexist if she maintained a firm grip on her resolve. She didn't have to become a victim of her circumstances again. Pulling out a notebook, she began drafting a detailed plan. She laid out a 3-step approach. Educate herself on investment methods, devise a budget to facilitate those investments, and dedicate a specific amount of time each week to nurture her financial literacy and growth. Each point sparked excitement within her, morphing her uncertainty into a series of actionable tasks. Feeling a rush of motivation, she committed to watch more webinars, read articles, and perhaps even engage with online forums about investing. Sarah's conviction renewed. The dawning realization of her capacity to choose and shape her destiny unfolded like a blossoming flower, promising beauty and resilience. Yet, lurking beneath this energetic outpouring was an unsettling truth. Her brother's turmoil would demand her attention soon enough. She had to prepare herself to navigate his struggles without neglecting her own goals. The fear of becoming overwhelmed again simmered just under the surface, reminding her of past attempts at supporting him that had left her grappling with her own battles. By evening, her mind buzzed, not just with facts about financial markets, but with the notion that she was more than a caretaker. She could be a leader of her own narrative. The first seeds of self-empowerment were sprouting, and she wanted to nurture them. No longer would Sarah allow external pressures to dictate her life's course. Yet the forthcoming challenge was looming. Her brother's release from a tumultuous relationship resonated all too deeply in her own life, especially as she'd experienced similar struggles. How could she support him without sacrificing her newfound determination? As dusk fell, she found herself reclined on the couch, the room dimly lit by the table lamp, thoughts swirling like fallen leaves outside. A conflict started brewing within. Could she really balance his dependency with her own journey toward financial independence? The battle seemed imminent, and she feared it might consume her. With a resolute sigh, she steeled her mind. The real question was not whether she could be there for her brother, but if she could avoid reverting to her old passive state. Would she rise to the challenge and showcase the strength she now recognized within herself? Or would she fall back into the familiar patterns of self-sacrifice? Sarah's phone buzzed. A familiar ringtone signaled that her brother was calling, and with her heart in a tightening knot, she picked it up. The moment had come to face not only him, but the very part of herself that had been tethered for too long. What truths would unfold, and could they redefine the journey she was only just beginning? As she answered the call, Sarah's voice trembled slightly, betraying her internal turmoil. "Hey, it's me," she forced out, bracing herself for the weight of his words. "Sarah." He sounded breathless, a mix of relief and urgency lacing his tone. "I really appreciate you getting back to me. I didn't know who else to turn to." His vulnerability struck a chord within her, but it also heightened her anxiety. Here was her brother, reaching out, yet the unspoken expectations loomed heavily. "What's going on?" she asked, adopting a supportive tone while internally questioning her ability to provide the emotional resources he required. I broke up with Lily. The whole situation spiraled out of control, and I feel lost." His admission fell, heavy like a stone lodged in a stream. The disappointment mingled with a sensation of familiar duty. She could feel the tug to placate his pain. In that fraught moment, the echo of past sacrifices echoed in her mind. How easily had she become entrenched in his turmoil before, her own needs dimmed. But she held back. This time, she was unwilling to compromise her boundaries, recognizing the importance of a carefully navigated response. "Do you want to talk about it?" She hoped her voice conveyed empathy without sacrificing her own distance from the situation. "What's there to talk about?" He scoffed bitterly. "Everything is just a mess. I feel like I can't breathe." "Has she moved on?" Sarah pried, carefully guiding the conversation. She was curious, but she also wanted to affirm his strength. He needed to recognize his capacity amidst vulnerability. "Yeah, but it was messy. Arguments, accusations. I don't know what I could have done differently." His voice cracked, resonating with the kind of grief she had experienced too, and this pushed her resolve further. Sitting cross-legged on the couch, she scoured her thoughts for words. "Sometimes it's important to step back and take stock of what happened. Reflecting can help prevent the same mistakes in the future." "Yeah? Easy for you to say," he snapped. "You've always had your life figured out. I'm just stuck." She felt the sting of his words. It threatened to undermine her recent resolve. But she reminded herself, this was about him now, not a personal attack. "I'm not perfect," she said softly, almost to herself. "But I understand what it feels like to feel lost. What I'm doing right now is trying to move forward, and you can too." Silence accompanied her statement, and as she waited for him to respond, she felt the battle she'd been avoiding rise to the surface. Could she truly support him without losing herself in the process? "Thanks for listening, Sarah. I don't really know how to fix this," he began, but she interrupted gently. "Maybe you don't have to fix it right away. Just embrace where you're at. We can both figure things out together." The silence thickened again, but this time it felt different. A mutual understanding glimmering beneath the surface. Despite her earlier reservations, she felt emboldened to be a sister while advocating for her autonomy. "Okay," he murmured finally, his tone more subdued. "You're right. I'll figure it out, but I will need some help." After they hung up, Sarah's mind swirled with the challenge of navigating this delicate dance of support while holding her ground. The fear of losing herself hovered like a specter, but she also recognized an emerging clarity. With the phone still warm in her hand, she felt a tingle of awareness. She was carving space for both of them, a potentially volatile harmony that could either nourish or drain her. As she turned off the lamp and prepared for bed, a determination simmered. The looming question felt bigger now. Could her journey toward financial literacy provide a lifeline to her brother, and in turn, keep her centered? Crawling under the covers, she decided to explore the answer. Tomorrow would begin with a renewed focus, not just on her own aspirations, but also on how to essentially protect her journey while standing beside her brother. She would delve into not only how to help him financially, but emotionally as well. A new plan emerged, ignited with possibility as her thoughts raced ahead. What if she combined her newfound knowledge with practical guidance for him? But would he accept her help, or would he view it as yet another attempt to control? As she drifted off, Sarah felt the pulse of tumultuous emotional territory to navigate. Tomorrow's conversation with her brother would be a test. Could she stand as both a sister and an individual in pursuit of her dreams? The dawn awaited with its tenuous promise, yet there remained the unrelenting specter of truth unknown. Would her efforts deepen their bond, or fracture it further? The sun painted the room in soft shades of gold as Sarah stirred awake, a blend of anticipation and trepidation coursing through her veins. She sat up slowly, the previous night's conversation with her brother echoing ominously. Her mind sharpened on her resolve. Today, she would bridge the gap between her financial knowledge and her emotional connection with him. After her morning routine, Sarah brewed a mug of herbal tea, each sip grounding her in a moment of calm before the impending challenge. She wondered what insights she could offer, not just about money, but about the emotional undercurrents that often accompanied financial discussions. As she prepared her workspace, notebooks scattered with budgeting tips, investment nuances, and practical advice caught her eye. But she hesitated. Would jumping into finance alienate him further? It wasn't just about numbers. It was about feelings, fears, and the deeper implications of money on their relationship. Returning to her couch, she opened her laptop and began drafting a message to her brother. Instead of presenting a list of points, she aimed for openness. Hey, I've been thinking about how to help you. Not just with the mess with Lily, but what you want in the future. Let's get together later. I have some ideas. Before sending it, she paused, questioning whether her words encapsulated what she truly felt. The fear of being perceived as patronizing gnawed at her. Would he see this as an intrusion rather than a lifeline? Yet she also knew that if they were to explore these topics, they would have to dissect the layers of emotional trauma that surrounded finances. After hitting send, an invigorating thrill surged through her. The conversation was her chance to validate his feelings, while weaving in her expertise. Would he recognize the connection? Or would old patterns entrench them in a cycle of misunderstanding? Turning her focus inward, she considered her own financial journey. Months ago, she had felt paralyzed by her ignorance, her insecurities rooting deeper with each passing day. Seeking advice had led her to understand budgeting better, but she was still navigating the intricacies of investing and saving. Hadn't she once been lost like her brother? Balancing her emotions with practical wisdom began to feel like an art form. She decided she wouldn't just throw knowledge at him. She would create a safe space for him to express himself, unencumbered by judgment. "Tell me what you need," she would prompt, more than willing to adapt her approach. By late afternoon, Sarah sat in a small cafe, the aroma of fresh coffee enveloping her senses. Her phone buzzed, her brother's reply. "I can do later. What do you want to talk about?" His text felt tentative, yet hopeful. A flicker of reassurance ignited within her. He was open to discussion. Taking a deep breath, Sarah replied, "Everything. Let's start with where you are right now. Your feelings matter." The text felt more courageous than just a platform for financial talk. She was extending an invitation to vulnerability. As the time for their meeting drew closer, her anticipation shifted into nervous energy. The cafe buzzed around her, but all she could focus on was the impending conversation with him. She wanted him to feel seen and respected as he weathered this storm, yet she also yearned for both of them to emerge with clarity and resilience. The afternoon sunlight poured in as she spotted her brother entering, his face a mixture of relief and apprehension. She waved him over, her heart racing. This was it. The moment to transform her fear into understanding, to dive into the emotional labyrinth between them. "Hey," he said, settling into the chair across from her. "Hey," she replied, her voice steady. "Let's start with how you're feeling about everything. No rush." As he settled in, an electric current flowed between them. The air was thick with possibilities, the future unwritten. But just as she opened her notebook, ready to begin delving into a journey of both introspection and growth for them both, apprehension flickered in her mind. Would her attempts at bridging their emotional landscape and financial literacy truly resonate with him? With a steely determination, she was prepared to face whatever was to come. They were both venturing into uncharted territory, a nexus of struggle and potential, in a conversation that would demand honesty and courage from them both. Yet as she glanced at the notepad filled with strategies and questions, one thought ricocheted through her mind. The real test wasn't just about what they discussed, but whether she could maintain her ground amidst the tidal waves of emotional turmoil. What if their talk revealed more than she bargained for? Would it lead to a breakthrough, or a deeper misunderstanding? As Sarah absorbed her brother's expression, the mixture of apprehension and relief, she felt the weight of the moment settle heavily around them. "So," she began gently, "tell me what's on your mind." The straightforwardness of her question felt like a lifeline thrown into choppy waters. a plea for openness rather than avoidance. He shifted slightly, tracing the rim of his coffee cup with a finger. I don't know, Sarah. Things with Lily have left me feeling like I'm drowning. And then there's everything else. The bills piling up, my job being unstable. It feels like I'm constantly fighting. The vulnerability in his voice surprised her, and she realized just how deep the roots of his distress were, intertwined with financial strain. Taking a careful sip of her tea to bolster her own nerves, Sarah felt her previous strategies flicker to life in her mind. This wasn't solely a financial discussion. It was about healing and clarity. Let's break it down then. How are you handling the stress? What do you wish was different? As her brother started to speak, she instinctively redirected the conversation to help him articulate his feelings, rather than drowning him in facts. It was crucial to establish that she was truly listening and protecting his sense of agency. His voice cracked a bit as he spoke. I just get frustrated. I try to make ends meet, but it's like I'm on a treadmill. Everything is just slipping away. His admission resonated, and she felt the air thicken with a blend of anxiety and empathy. In that shared space, Sarah recalled her own struggles with financial insecurity. Once confined to a cycle of irresponsible spending and reckless budgeting, she had turned her life around through education. Perhaps, she thought, sharing her own journey could empower him as well. Do you remember when I was in debt? She offered carefully. I felt like I was buried under an avalanche of bills. The first step for me was just admitting I needed help. Her brother had perked up, the glint of curiosity in his eyes reflecting a flicker of hope. You mean you didn't always have it together? Not even close, she confessed, a small grin breaking through her serious demeanor. And I still don't. Every day is a new challenge. But what changed was my willingness to embrace the discomfort of those conversations and educate myself. It made all the difference. His brow creased in thought, and she could see gears turning in his mind. You kept pushing through, even when it got tough? Absolutely, Sarah affirmed. And that's something I want to emphasize today. It's okay to lean on each other. We can tackle this together. She could feel the tentative strands of connection strengthening, urging them both forward, yet uncertainty lingered in her stomach. Would he truly be able to absorb that wisdom and apply it? A personal confrontation loomed on the horizon, one where she would have to challenge her brother's stagnant mindset, entrenched in fear. The savagery of the past could easily snap back if they pushed too hard. Choosing her words with care, she pressed on. But we have to be honest about what we're facing. What are your priorities? What are your goals? His exhale, a heavy gust of breath, hinted at a more substantial internal battle. I want to be able to breathe again, but I feel stuck in this cycle, like I failed Lily and myself. Sarah sensed the genuine despair radiating from him. That's valid, she replied, deciding to confront the emotional elephant in the room. But failure isn't a permanent condition. Let's think about what you can manage right now. Instead of feeling defeated by the cycle, let's plot a different course. The conversation hung there, ripe with potential but fraught with anxiety. She wasn't merely offering a lifeline. She was challenging him to transform his perspective on failure from a paralyzing fear into a potential for growth. Just as the faintest hints of understanding began to shine through her brother's dark cloud of worry, a new tension paralyzed the air. She realized that how he responded in this moment would set the tone for their future. Would he cling to the fears that had burdened him, or leap towards the path of empowerment? And in that instant, her resolve crystallized. She would hold her ground, for both of them. Change could be incredibly uncomfortable, but she was willing to help him carve a way forward through this difficult maze. Would they find strength together in this exploration of vulnerability? Or would the shadows of their past entrap them once more? With just a few words, they could either begin a journey toward healing or tumble deeper into despair. The stakes had never felt higher. Sarah watched as her brother took a moment to compose himself, the weight of the world resting heavily on his shoulders. He shifted in his seat, the coffee cup forgotten, and finally looked her squarely in the eyes. What if I mess this up? What if I can't change anything? The desperation in his tone cracked through the tentative atmosphere, shaking the fragile foundation of their discussion. Knowing that this crucial moment demanded her full attention, Sarah leaned in, ready to foster a space for him to explore these fears, rather than recoil from them. "What if you succeed?" she proposed gently, trying to navigate his internal storm. "What if you took small steps forward, rather than trying to tackle everything at once? What can you change today?" His gaze dropped to the floor, the flickering light from the kitchen casting a silhouette of doubt across his face. "It just feels like there's too many mistakes. I should have figured this out by now. Begin where you are," Sarah encouraged, recalling how she had once found herself paralyzed by the enormity of her own financial failures. "We've all made mistakes, and it's okay. But each mistake also taught me something invaluable. Let's see if we can turn those experiences into your personal roadmap." He gave a slight nod, and Sarah sensed a thawing in his rigid posture. Below the surface, she noticed the flicker of resilience forming. Driven by a budding urgency, she reached across the table and gently placed her hand over his, steadying both their breaths. "Let's brainstorm together. What if we list everything weighing on you? All of your responsibilities, financial or emotional. Would that help?" He hesitated but then retrieved his phone from the table, scrolling to create a note. As he began to draft a list, Sarah's heart raced. This was the first tangible action she had seen him take towards grappling with reality, instead of retreating into despair. "Bills, job worries, and Lily," he murmured as he typed. The weight of those names on the screen felt pronounced, each word like a beacon calling for attention. "And my self-doubt. It's like a constant backdrop." "That's a great start," she commended, keeping the energy light while reinforcing his progress. "Now, let's break it down. Which one feels the most manageable to tackle first?" His brow knitted in concentration, uncertainty creeping back in. "Bills, I guess. They pile up every month, but each one feels like a reminder of everything I've failed at." "Let's shift that perspective," Sarah suggested, her mind racing with possibilities. What if each bill was an opportunity to practice financial skills? Every overdue amount could turn into a lesson in managing budgets, finding resources, or negotiating payments. We can learn together. The vulnerability etched across his face began to transform as he mulled over her words. She watched his mental gears shift, the wheels of empowerment slowly starting to turn. "You really think I could do it?" "I don't just think it. I know you can," she replied, her voice firm but inviting. "We'll set up a plan. You're not alone in this. I'll be right here every step of the way." As their conversation shifted back and forth, Sarah guided him to envision actionable strategies. They sketched out a loose framework of priority tasks that could gently pull him from the brink of overwhelm. Yet Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Though sparks of change ignited between them, the deeper shadows of self-doubt still loomed. His fears about failure weren't vanished. They remained, threatening to engulf him if not carefully tended to. "Remember," she said, sensing that crucial moments hung like ripe fruit just out of reach. "It's crucial to confront those feelings. Every time you feel that familiar pressure to retreat, lean into it. Allow it to inform you instead of trapping you." Suddenly her phone buzzed, breaking the intensity of their moment. She glanced at the screen. An unfamiliar name appeared, and a chill gripped her. A thought leapt to mind. What if this mysterious caller held a key to something they hadn't considered in their planning? As her brother registered her abrupt change in demeanor, Sarah's heart raced with a blend of anxiety and hope. Would this unexpected call lead them to the answers they both desperately sought? The path of discovery suddenly loomed ahead, its potential both thrilling and daunting. Sarah's heart quickened, a mix of anticipation and dread swirling within her. She glanced at her brother, whose rising concern mirrored her own. The name on the screen was vaguely familiar, yet she couldn't place it. Focusing on the call felt necessary. Her instincts urged her to answer, convinced this could be the catalyst for the change they sought. "Are you okay?" her brother whispered, a trace of concern in his tone. "Just a second, okay?" she replied, the urgency in her voice rising. She pressed the green button without thinking twice, bracing for whatever might unfold on the other end. "Hello?" she said, almost instinctively. "Sarah, it's Tom," the voice responded, low and steady with just a hint of hesitance. It was her old financial advisor, someone she hadn't spoken to in years. Memories of their tense meetings flooded her mind. Moments filled with numbers, spreadsheets, and a spiral of stress that always seemed to accompany financial discussions. But now, the weight of those days felt different. "Tom, what's going on?" she asked, conscious of her brother waiting. She shifted her posture, indicating to him that this was important. "I've been thinking about you lately," he said, "especially with everything happening in the economy. I just thought I should reach out. You could benefit from some insights I've gained since we last spoke." His words piqued her interest, and she motioned for her brother to remain steady as she tried to absorb the significance of the moment. "What do you mean? Insight about what?" "Your finances specifically, strategies that are not only about budgeting, but also about potential investment avenues. I know this might not be what you want to hear right now, but it seems like you're at a junction where every little step really counts. The circumstances have shifted, and there are opportunities that could make a real difference." "Opportunities?" she echoed, her mind racing. This was a pivotal moment for her brother, a chance to pivot from despair to actionable insight. "What kind of opportunities?" "Let's just set up a time to meet. There are no obligations, but I believe I can help lay out a more solid plan that also considers emotional support aspects. How finance affects mental well-being. It's all intertwined, you know?" Every instinct screamed at her to pull her brother into this conversation, to bridge the gap between their experiences and decisions. Yes, we need to talk. I won't be able to meet today, but could we set something up for this week?" "Absolutely. How about Thursday evening?" Tom replied, his tone reassuring. "I'll make it work," she said, toggling between curiosity and apprehension. As she ended the call, a newfound urgency coursed through her veins. "Was that him?" her brother asked, leaning closer, his eyes reflecting a glimmer of skepticism mixed with curiosity. "Yeah, it might be big. He mentioned insights on not just finances, but the emotional aspects too," she replied, her thoughts boiling down to clarity. "This could help us identify guiding principles, not just bills." Her brother hesitated, uncertainty creeping back. "But what if he's just trying to sell us something? Then we'll just listen. But remember how we talked about tackling small challenges? This could be another small step toward understanding. We need to approach this like we talked about. Dissect the fears and learn from them." Something flickered in her brother's gaze, a blend of caution and a cautious yearning for change. "All right, but can I really trust him after all this time?" "I think we owe it to ourselves to find out," she asserted, her own determination solidifying. But as she reached out to grab a notebook for brainstorming potential discussion points, a flicker of doubt ignited within her. Was this a step forward, or merely another round of disappointment masked as opportunity? "Let's make a list," she said, striving to channel her mixed emotions into organization. Glimpses of hope mingled with the nagging fear of failure as she scribbled, each stroke calling forth the weight of doubt they could no longer afford to ignore. "Whatever happens, we need to approach this with clear eyes," she reminded him, a reassurance that fell firmly on her own ears as well. Just as her brother began to engage with the ideas sprawling across the paper, Sarah registered the subtle tension unfolding within herself. In the tapestry of hopes and fears forming between them, she was beginning to understand. Some journeys would lead them into uncharted territories, while others might unearth hidden truths. And as Thursday loomed near, a question lingered in their minds. Was this call the beacon of change or a false light, illuminating paths better left undiscovered? As Thursday evening approached, Sarah's mind was a whirlwind of possibilities tinged with trepidation. She'd spent most of the day mentally rehearsing what to say, her thoughts oscillating between hope and fear. The notebook now lay open on the kitchen table, filled with lists, questions, and reminders of their fragile financial state. Each line echoed the stakes that felt increasingly real as the hours ticked down. Her brother had taken a seat across from her, flipping through the pages. "What do you think he'll say?" he asked, skepticism layering his words. "I don't know, but I think we need to keep an open mind," Sarah replied, forcing herself to sound more confident than she felt. The idea of another disappointment lurked in the shadows of her conscience, urging her to shield her emotions. Yet, part of her couldn't shake the sense that this wasn't just about numbers. It was about liberation. The doorbell rang, rattling her concentration. Sarah shot a glance at her brother, then stood up, feeling a mixture of anticipation and anxiety coursing through her veins. "Let's see what he has to say," she murmured, exhaling deeply as she opened the door to reveal Tom standing there, briefcase in hand. He appeared composed, his smile reassuring, yet professional. "Sarah, it's good to see you again," he said, stepping inside. His presence filled the room with an air of authority that stifled any impulse to retreat into her shell. "Hi, Tom. Thanks for coming." She stepped aside, allowing him to enter. "This is my brother, Josh." "Pleasure." He nodded, offering a handshake. Josh gave a tight smile, and Sarah could sense the protective energy radiating off him. As they settled around the table, Tom wasted no time in unzipping his briefcase. "I'm glad we could meet. Let's dive right in." With swift movements, he presented graphs and projections, all coaxing attention to the potential opportunities that lay ahead. With every figure, Sarah's mind sharpened. Tom spoke confidently about investments, market trends, and creating passive income, all of which felt exhilarating yet overwhelming. Then came the pivotal moment. "You see, the emotional aspects of finance are crucial. Money plays a huge role in mental wellness. Often, the stress surrounding financial difficulties can overshadow what really matters, like family and personal growth." His words resonated deeply with Sarah. It was not just the strategies he offered, but the acknowledgement of the emotional toll that struck her. Was she guilty of letting fear govern her perception? As Tom elaborated on how a multifaceted approach to finance could ease anxiety, Josh interjected. "But what if we don't have the funds to follow your recommendations? What if our situation is too dire?" Tom, unfazed, leaned in slightly. "That's where the planning aspect becomes vital. You start small. It's about setting realistic goals. Even small investments or savings can lead to significant changes over time." The word small echoed in Sarah's mind. They had spent far too long letting obstacles paralyze them, and this was clear. Every effort, no matter how minute, formed the foundation for the future. "Okay, I like the sound of that," Sarah said, feeling a surge of courage. "What do we do first?" Tom offered an encouraging smile, as if lighting a spark she didn't know was there. He began laying out actionable steps, budgeting strategies, an overview of investment options, and the importance of prioritizing mental clarity. Slowly, she started to visualize a path forward, a series of next steps emerging in the foggy aftermath of her fears. But as they clicked through charts, the clock ticking away, another notion gripped Sarah. Was she truly equipped to handle this journey? What if stepping into this world opened doors she wasn't prepared for? Ones that would lead them to a place of vulnerability she wasn't ready to confront. As their conversation deepened, intertwining hope with anxiety, Sarah felt the urgency to peel back layers of her own understanding. Was she merely following Tom's guidance? Or could this also be about discovering her own capacity for financial literacy and growth? Just as she prepared to voice her thoughts, an unsettling realization took root. Their situation might demand more than just financial planning. It would require a confrontation with the fears that had held her back all this time. "Tom, if we can't adhere to the plans you're proposing, what happens next?" she asked, the weight of her words hanging between them like a loaded question. His gaze sharpened, awareness creeping into his smile. "That's the pivotal moment, Sarah. The choice to act, or not, will define your journey." And somewhere within her, the whisper of realization echoed louder than before. This wasn't merely about finance. It was about courage, about confronting her limitations and stretching beyond them. As the evening unfolded, Sarah understood she stood at the brink of something much larger than repairing their finances. A crossroad loomed, and the choices made now could reshape their lives forever. What will Sarah discover about her own willingness to change when the pressure mounts? And how far is she willing to push against her own boundaries? The evening came to a close, but the weight of the conversation lingered in the air long after Tom had left. Sarah sat at the table, surrounded by papers filled with numbers and projections, but the deeper realization was eclipsing all of it. This wasn't just about overcoming financial obstacles. It was about learning to reclaim her narrative. Her brother stared at the papers still as if he were trying to unlock their secrets. "This seems possible," he muttered, flipping through the plans they had discussed. "But can we really do it?" The hesitation in his voice resonated with her own doubts, echoing the struggles she had faced. Yet as she considered all they had learned that evening, a flicker of confidence ignited within her. "Absolutely, Josh. It starts with believing we can manage this, one small step at a time. We don't have to jump into the deep end." For the first time, Sarah realized that perspective was everything. The notion of control was beginning to feel less elusive, and she responded to the opportunity for change, not only for herself, but for her brother as well. In the weeks that followed, she and Josh immersed themselves in their new approach. Each Sunday they would meet to review their budgets, strategize about potential investments, and explore how they could minimize expenses, all while checking in on each other's emotional well-being. The principles of budgeting transformed from daunting tasks into sessions of empowerment. The numbers became allies rather than threats. Sarah engaged fully with distant ambitions and fresh goals. She followed through on every webinar and course she'd signed up for, absorbing knowledge like a sponge and sharing insights with her brother. With each passing day, she found herself conquering new facets of finance that once paralyzed her with fear. Determined to build something substantial, one day Sarah took the leap. She made her first investment. It was a small one, carefully researched and in line with what she'd learned, but it felt monumental. The rush of accomplishment surged through her veins as she realized she was taking charge, melding passion with calculated risks. She owed it to herself and her family to truly engage in their future. But amidst these victories, her relationship with Josh deepened. He emerged progressively from his fog of self-doubt, inching toward the acceptance that failures were simply lessons in disguise. They celebrated each small win together, commemorating what it meant to grow stronger as individuals while supporting one another. Then, one Friday afternoon, a few months into their journey, an unexpected email landed in Sarah's inbox. It was an official notification from the investment platform she had joined. To her shock, her small investment had yielded a notable return. The calculations, once met with skepticism, now bore fruit. With trembling hands, Sarah shared the news with Josh. "Look, I can't believe it, but I think we just made our first profit." The moment felt electric. It crystallized their journey into something tangible. "That's amazing! See? We can do this!" Josh exclaimed, his smile alive with renewed vigor. A sense of fierce pride enveloped Sarah. She had conquered her fears, transformed her relationship with finance, and provided a beacon of hope to her brother. Beyond the numbers, they had fostered a supportive environment where emotional growth flourished alongside financial literacy. She had proved to herself that discomfort could lead to genuine empowerment. As their progress continued, Sarah found herself in a meeting about financial literacy in her community, invited as a speaker to share her journey. Standing before an audience, the same doubts that once choked her confidence dissipated into resolve. Words flowed effortlessly, echoing her transformation. "I know firsthand the fear that comes with financial challenges, but embracing this journey changed everything. I stand here not just as a survivor of circumstances, but as an architect of my destiny." Stepping off the stage, she felt an intoxicating blend of vulnerability and strength woven through her. The warmth of applause rang in her ears, a recognition of her hard-earned transformation. The finish line she once feared had morphed into a beginning full of endless possibilities. Now, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, she felt the cozy presence of her family around her, their laughter mingling with echoes of success. Each moment had brought significance, revealing the truth that surpassing challenges creates a newfound path, one filled with hope, resilience, and profound growth. In summation, as Sarah reflected on her journey, she realized that true transformation requires not just knowledge, but courage and community. Her success wasn't merely about finances. It was about becoming the best version of herself, fulfilling her inherent potential while uplifting others along the way. And with this fervent resolve etched within her, she knew this was just the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this end. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support, and don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.